the system. I appreciate this may be, there may be a few of you who have joined some of our demos before or actually seen our system before. But I would imagine for a lot of you, this is probably the first time that you've actually seen HandsHQ in action, or actually even heard of or seen a risk assessment and method statement software. As I mentioned, a lot of businesses these days are still using the very sort of old school processes, being Word, Excel, pen and paper as well. So yeah, I'm going to show you today how we can streamline that process entirely from start to finish, get more people involved as well, so raise up that sort of engagement levels and hopefully add to that strong health and safety culture that you already have. If anyone cannot see my screen moving up and down, then please do let me know. Arena, I just want to double check. Can you see that? Is that all there?
Yeah, that's all good. Nice.
Perfect. Good stuff. We've just had quite a few people just join now. It's Dan, hello, Alex, Andy, David, good to have you on. Yeah, feel free to fire any questions throughout. But perfect. So this is HandsHQ. So HandsHQ is a web-based and cloud-based system. So it essentially means that providing you've got an internet connection, you can log into the system, create any RAMs, update any RAMs. So it's not just the generation process, but it's also the management of your documents and the activity logs and the audit trails that go behind them as well. So when you log into the system, the first page that you come to is your projects page. A project is our terminology for a job or for a contract. So I appreciate every business, depending on what industry you're in, the sort of terminology is a little bit different. But for us, it's projects. I believe we can actually change that. But essentially, this is our long list of different risk assessments and method statements that we've created for different projects. So we've got our project name, any client details, our job reference number, when that document is last updated. We do have a feature which is called Risk Register, which is for our sort of more enterprise accounts, which allows you to update individual risk assessments and really take control of your risk assessment library and set review dates for individual risk assessments. So we can see here that they are up to date. I'll touch upon that later on. We also have our internal approval workflow, which we can create as well, which essentially allows us to, once a RAMS has been created, let's say by a site manager, it could be sent through for approval by the health and safety manager or a director, for example, who can give that internal approval. You've also got the ability to duplicate a full RAMS document as well. So if you are doing any very sort of like standard tasks, duplicate tasks, like small maintenance works, for example, you do have the ability to duplicate that RAMS document, and then it just prompts you to go in and change the site specific details as well. So a little bit quicker than starting from scratch. However, having said that, the process can be made very simple to start from scratch each time. But to be honest, most of our customers just create a brand new project each time anyway. And you know, it makes sure that nothing's missed and that the document is made very specific to that site. You can actually turn the duplication off if you can't trust your team to write those documents. That can be done too. It's worth mentioning here is obviously we've got the different colors. So anything green means it's a live project, so a job which is currently live. Anything amber or yellow means that job has got a future start date. So we might have created the RAMS 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So that's just tell us that the job's not started. Anything gray means that job is now finished. You do have the ability to archive. Just before I jump on to create a new project and we run through that process, I thought it'd be worthwhile just to show you up at the top here, where we have a drop-down list and drop-down menu. Essentially, this allows us to create divisions. So those larger businesses that have multiple business units, divisions, or if you wanted to split HandsHQ up regionally, then you've got the ability to do that. And each division can have their own workflow and library and content that you use to generate those documents. But let's jump into creating a new project. So we can hit this button here, which is new project up in the top right. Once again, feel free to throw your questions in if you have any throughout. So it's a 4-step process to create our site-specific RAMs. The first step is adding in our project details. So if we wanted to add in our project name, I'm just going to call this webinar test RAMS for now. And then we can add in any reference number. Also add in our start and end date. So let's say this starts next Monday. We're creating the RAMS a few days early and it runs for a week. We can then also add in our client details as well. Let's say that HandsHQ, we are the customer today. And you've also got the ability to add in your locations of work as well. Very straightforward, literally just sort of fill in the blanks at the moment. We can then move through to our next step of the process, which is where we come into the risk assessment library. Now, the risk assessment library, every package within HandsHQ that you go for has access to this library. For our larger, sort of more enterprise customers, we do have the ability to add in your own custom content. So as we go through this, if you feel as if that none of the categories within here match the work that you do, then we do have the ability to get rid of the whole library if you wanted, and then add in your own content and make it a very bespoke library based off your sort of day-to-day works. So the way this works, essentially, we're prompting the user at this point to start considering the tasks and the hazards that are going to be on site and begin to build that sort of risk profile. So we're in the general category here. Let's say if we go, right, arrival and departure from site, that's one of our first sort of hazards that we've identified. We can then go into edit. And then you'll have and be able to see behind the title of arrival and departure from site, all of the associated risk assessments for that hazard. So we've got our risk assessments, our hazards, risk rating, control measures, and our residual risk. This is where we can actually go ahead and make it site specific. So this is really where you're getting that sort of high quality, but also consistency of your documentation. Everyone's starting from the same place, rather than trying to find old documents with old content, copy and pasting, or quite frankly, just trying to write them yourselves with an empty box. Which I know that's where the sort of consistency between users really does differ. We can go ahead here and actually make these site specific. So electric shock from overhead cables. Okay, we've identified actually this isn't an issue. We don't have any overhead cables, therefore we can deselect this risk assessment. But as we go down below, crush before and load, yes, this has the potential to happen. So we can leave it selected, but then we can actually go into edit. And this is where we can go ahead and add our information to make this site specific. So we can say, yeah, it's a 2-ton pallet on Smith Street, for example. You've got your 5x5 risk matrix, your control measures, and then you've got your residual risk as well. You've also got the ability to choose your persons at risk down here as well. So once we've made that site specific, we can update. We can move back to our project. To our risk assessment library, sorry. And then essentially we're going through this library, going through the categories and selecting everything else which is applicable to our works. So as we come down, we can see just how many sort of categories there are here that covers across so many different industries. But yeah, as I mentioned, we do have the ability to essentially get rid of any of this content if you don't need it and replace it with your own custom content as well. So if I just go to, let's say, let's go with electrical just for the purposes of this example, and we'll say, right, we're going to be installing some lighting and pat testing as well. So once we've selected the different tasks that we're doing, then we can move through to our next step. This is where we come through to our sequence of operations, the start of our method statement, basically. This is the methodology or the sequence that you would like the team to follow to ensure that they complete the job in the safest possible way. Once again, this is all editable. You can add your own content in here as well. But because we've selected electrical, it's therefore only going to pull through any relevant electrical tasks for us. So let's say, okay, we're going to be installing lighting as one of our tasks. This is the standard process that you would like the team to follow to complete that job in the safest possible way. You've got the ability to customize, so you can deselect anything that's not applicable for this job. You can drag and drop them around. You can free text in here as well. You can also add any images too. So if you wanted to make this very pictorial sequence, then you can do that. Really helpful for a lot of our customers if there are any forms of language barriers on site, and you can add images and make it a pictorial sequence. And then we come on to our final step of our full step process to create the sort of our RAMS document. There are a few sort of additional add-ons after, like COSHH and so on, which I'll go into in a moment. But yeah, final step of the process is our method statement. A lot of this information is all pre-populated based on our selections from the previous steps as well. So everything relates to one another, well, relates to the selections that you've already previously made. However, you can go in here, and if you wanted to delete all the content, then you can do that. You can write your own content in here as well. You've also got the ability to add any images or PDF documents as well. So some of our customers, what they'll do in here is they'll have a section for insurances, for example, so they can upload PDF documents or scans or images of their insurance documents. You can have training documents on here. We do also have an integration with our training side of the system as well, which I'll touch upon in a bit. But yeah, essentially, this is where you can add all of your method statement information in here as well. As I come to the bottom, you can select your hazardous substances. These are just the icons for the moment. I'll show you how we can actually add a sort of use-specific COSHH assessment. And then finally, we've got our PPE requirements as well, which you can select from here. So once we've done that, we can move through to our next step. And believe it or not, we've now generated our RAMS document. So our risk assessment, sequence operation, method statement has been created. One thing that we do say about our documents is they're always live documents. So that essentially means that as and when you need to make an update to this document, it may be because the job's changed slightly or the environment's changed, the client's asked you to do another task. Then what you can do is you can jump back into the risk assessment. Let's say if we just wanted to add delivery of materials for now, we can save and exit. It will ask you for a reason as to why you're editing. So I'll just say added risk assessment. And then once we've done that, what we actually have is the activity tab. So you've got a full audit trail and activity log of exactly how that document has changed over time. So who's created it, when it was created, who's made those updates, and the reason for that update as well. But something else that is really handy is you do have the ability to download like hard copies of and different versions of that document as and when it's changed. So you do actually have physical proof of how that that document has changed. So, and you know, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but if there are any sort of near misses or incidents, then you do have the ability to sort of show how that document has changed and how you've made those updates as well. Let's have a look at COSHH quickly. I appreciate that a lot of businesses at the moment, when it comes to COSHH, you might have a separate COSHH software. You may just have hard copies of the SDSs that you most commonly use, and you staple them onto the back of your RAMS. This actually allows you to create a use-specific COSHH assessment. I'll show you how we do this. So we just hit add COSHH. We have a shared library of about 10,500 substances. It's always growing. So I'm sure there's probably more there now. But essentially, what we're doing is searching for the substance that we're going to be using. So let's say we want to search for mastic. We find the right mastic. Let's go with 5-therm. We can add the COSHH. It's then going to ask us a few sort of standard questions. So, you know, what's the quantity that's going to be kept on site? How much is going to be used? What's the method of use? Duration of exposure, and so on. So we're essentially just answering these questions. We can then add COSHH. So that's now been added. We can move back to our project. And we can now see that the COSHH assessment has been added. I'll show you what that final document looks like in a minute as well, both the RAMS and the COSHH side of things. But once again, that activity tab is now growing because we can see that a COSHH has been added to our document as well. So yeah, a few final bits just to show you before I show you the final document itself. So we've got the ability to obviously submit for approval. And this is actually now, so we've generated the RAMS. We want to start getting this sent out to the client. But before we do that, you do have the ability to submit for approval on some of our packages where this feature is available. It almost works as that sort of last line of defense and sort of control for quality. Obviously, with the library, you already have a high level of sort of control and ensuring that quality is there because everyone's selecting from the most up-to-date content rather than using old documents that they found in a filing cabinet for a similar project 2 or 3 years ago. However, this does allow you to create that approval process internally. So let's say a site manager, Joe Blogs, for example, has created this RAMS. What you can then go ahead and do is submit for approval, find the person that is going to be approving that document and submit for approval. Let's say it's the health and safety manager. They would then receive an email to say, Joe Blogs has created webinar test RAMS. Could you please review and approve? They can go ahead and read through, preview the document, read through it, and then hopefully they'll come back and say, yes, best RAMS ever. And then they can just approve that document. So then the contracts manager knows essentially at that point, okay, the RAMS document has been approved, given the internal thumbs up, and is now ready to be sent on to our clients. So once we've done that, obviously you've got the ability to send it out to your clients via this button here, which is email. It will come up with your email address because that's the login that you use. So you can actually distribute this document out directly from HandsHQ rather than having to download a PDF, attach it to an email and so on. So you can get that out here immediately. Big benefit of that is you'll actually be able to see sort of like the history of that within the activity log. Works a little bit like WhatsApp where you can see that it's been sent and whether it's been opened as well. So full tracking on that sort of email that gets sent out. But then the last part of the puzzle is obviously distributing these RAMS documents out to the team out on site, that those that are actually going to be working on that job. So we've got in here a feature which is called digital signatures. So essentially what you're able to do is you can add your personnel. So let's say if we wanted to send out Alan to site today, we can see Alan's role. It does also, this is where the first integration to our training matrix, our training register software comes into play here. It says that Alan's got the right training for the job. That is a separate product. We do have a webinar that we're running on it in a couple of weeks' time on the 20th, I think. So I'll touch upon it today, but we're going to have a proper look into it in a couple of weeks. But it's telling us that they're valid for the project. And at the moment, the signature is not sent. So what we can go ahead and do is ask everyone to sign the latest version. So because we've got Alan's email in the system, it's going to push out an email to say, right, this is the RAMS for XYZ job. Could you please review it and sign it? There's two ways this can happen. It can either be that they sign it on their phone, so they get the email on their phone and they sign off on their phone, and then that signature will be pulled into the system. Alternatively, and we know it's them, obviously, because it's gone to their email. Alternatively, what you've got the ability to do is if you've got someone on site doing the RAMS induction, then you've got the ability to say, right, find your name and come sign next to it. So they can find their name, come here and select sign now. This is then going to pull up for us the RAMS document that we've created. So obviously, as you can see here, you'd have your own branding, your own address, business information, and so on. Revision number updates itself automatically as well. So it's not something that you necessarily have to manage and control yourself. And then as we scroll down, we come onto our sort of method statement, sequence operation, and all of our information has been formatted for us. We don't have to waste time or spend time with formatting documents ever again. The system would do all the sort of heavy lifting in that sense for you. As we come off the back of the risk assessment, we come of the method statement, sorry, we come to our risk assessment. So our 5x5 grid is explained for us. And then our risk assessments are laid out. Very straightforward, very easy to read. I've had the pleasure of reading, hundreds, if not probably thousands of different risk assessments from different businesses. And one thing that I've noticed in common is just how much text can be thrown onto one page. And no one's going to be reading those. So we just wanted to make this document flow as easy as possible. You can sort of, especially if it's your first time on site, it's very easy to sort of be able to pick up this document and understand exactly what is meant by the risk assessments. As we shoot off the bottom, we come to our signature page. So in a minute, I'm going to sign this, and then the digital signature will be in print here. And then you can see that we've got our COSHH assessment bolted onto the back of our document as well. And also the SDS sheet. You could decide whether you want the SDS sheet there or not. It's completely up to you. So Alan, in this example, has read through the document, understands exactly what the RAMS is and what's required of him. So they can select accept. Because we've selected our name on the system, we've said, right, we are Alan, then it's actually going to take an image of the person that's signing that document. I always get a horrible picture. Well, that's probably one of the most disgusting ones. So they can then sign off on it like so. And then you've got, you're doing your due diligence, mitigating that risk as much as possible. You're getting the right people sign off on the right documents. And if there was ever a near miss or an incident and there's an investigation, you can always go back to that RAMS document because you've archived it or it's still within the system, and you're able to see exactly who signed off on that document rather than, risking losing that RAMS document or a flood on site and all of your RAMS documents and the signed bits of paper are gone. You've always got access to that within the system as well. But that is pretty much a quick run through of the RAM side of the system. We've got a couple of minutes left, so it might be quite a good time to open up the floor to any questions, if anyone does have any questions, so feel free to fire those in. Just to quickly mention as well, the other side of our system, which is our training register. So essentially, this is a digital version of your big Excel spreadsheets that I know can be a bit of a headache at the best of times and quite complicated. So it's just, once again, you get email notifications as to when training's due to expire. You can upload certificates, which then allows you to download training reports of individuals. So if your client ever asks you, say, right, can you send XYZ down to site, but can you actually prove that they've got the right training? As well, when you send the RAMS at that point of when you've generated the RAMS, you can also send over a training report of every single person that's going onto that site as well. So just a much easier way. We do also have an integration with an e-learning provider coming soon. But I'll be doing a full run through and a full demo of that in a couple of weeks. So feel free to sign up for that one as well. Have we got any questions that have come through, Irina?
Yes, Mason. So we got a question from Dan, which is, does the system notify when a risk assessment is up for a periodic review? So thanks for the question, Dan. It's not available at the moment, but it's on our roadmap, which is coming pretty soon. We also have a public roadmap that you can find on our website, which would give you an idea of what we are working on now, what we are planning up next, and this also gives you an opportunity to actually influence the way we build the product. So yeah, you can go there and vote for it, and I'm sure we'll be working on this pretty soon. Thanks,
Rina. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so it's worth mentioning as well. Actually, obviously, you've got these sections here with the risk assessments up to date, and the so yeah, essentially, for RAMS documents of projects, there isn't a review date on them. So it might be that you're in manufacturing, for example, and you create a RAMS document for a certain area of the business. So the review date won't be there for that at the moment. But with the risk register, you can set dates to review individual risk assessments. So it might be like you set a date to review all of your slip, trips and falls risk assessments, for example. So you can do that. And they will send out, so you've got like review dates here. Before that review date is up, I think it's like 2 weeks before, you'll actually receive an email to say that it needs to be updated as well. But yeah, good question. Any other questions from anyone else at all? I appreciate that. Obviously, probably a big question from all of you is how much does it cost? We've got so many different packages that fits different requirements. So what I'll try and do is either myself or one of the team here, we'll try and get around and give everyone a call at some point today, just to ask any outstanding questions that you might have, and be able to give you an idea on price as well. Yeah, pricing ranges anywhere from £30 a month all the way up to £10,000 per annum. It completely depends. Andy, quick question. Do you deal with any language barriers? Obviously, with construction, there are a lot of site people that work on site from different countries. We don't have the ability within the system at the moment to be able to translate any of the information. That's not available. It is all in English. But once again, it really does, I guess, 100% depend on you as a business. If it's over here in the UK, do you want to be putting out RAMS in different languages? A few of the businesses that we've spoken with wanted to start with, but then decided actually against it. But yeah, language barriers, and that's why we've actually put in a lot of the images as well, because that's really helped where there has been language barriers, adding images into the sequence operations. Got a question from D. Irina, if you're right to answer that one.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dee. So is the system available to use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Yes, of course, it's always available for your use anytime you want. It's also available on all types of devices, so whether it's a desktop or a mobile phone or tablet, whatever works best for you. So yeah, it is.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Irina. Got a couple of minutes left. I'm sure that a few of you might want to drop off now. If you haven't got any other questions, then feel free to. If you want to put in the chat, we will hopefully be able to get around to everyone and give everyone a call today. If you just want to put in the chat me or yes please or hands up, then we can call you first and be able to give you a price. If anyone's really desperate for a call immediately, then let us know in the chat, and we'll make sure that we put you at the top list for a call. But yeah, as mentioned, webinar in a couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at the training register. So if the Excel spreadsheets that you have at the moment are giving you an absolute headache, then feel free to join that one, sign up for that. I think there'll probably be an email that'll be going around with the recording of this and the link to the next one. So it'd be good to show you around that as well, how that links in with the RAMS a little bit more detail in a couple of weeks as well. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. We are finishing pretty much bang on time. I told you, I did promise that we wouldn't go past past. So yeah, thanks very much for your time, everyone, and we'll catch up with everyone soon. And feel free to get in touch if you've got any other questions. Speak soon. Thanks everyone.